now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, folks, the journey is continuing. November the 4th, critical day, very important. Folks, please, I beg you, go to vote, but I also beg you to please learn about the candidates that you're voting for. Do not let anyone tell you who to vote for. If they tell you who to vote for, find out about what they've accomplished. Check their records. We're continuing the journey here with Dr. Moylan, who is the candidate for the 17th Congressional candidate. Dr. Moylan is going to be doing a series of these shows, as you know, to give you information about him. And I want to welcome you, Doctor, again on the show.
Sam, it's always a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to express knowledge, ideas to the voters.
I say this all the time, and you heard me say this on the many shows we've done, is I'm not endorsing anybody, but I want people to know who the candidates are. We're in a mess today in the state. Thank God Corbett's doing the job he set out to do, and people criticize me for that, but he's accomplished what he said he was going to do.
Indeed.
You have a record as a coroner. You said you were going to do certain things at the coroner. You accomplished them, okay? And hopefully when I get your opponent on the show, we'll talk to him. But let's talk about what are some critical issues today that you're seeing if you when you become the congressman.
Well, in several of our previous shows, I've talked about the sanctity of human life.
Yeah.
And just within the last few days, we've had some activity in that arena down in Washington. And
let me interject, and I hate to interrupt you. The reason why I think you save lives. That's your job. Every day at Simon Kramer, you're out there saving people's lives, either through the radiation that you've developed or what you're doing. You're saving people's lives. No difference with the unborn child. So I know some people, when you go out, people tell you, Doc, you're going to win, but lose the pro-life situation, like as if these unborn babies are nothing. So I just want to, there's many issues that you're going to talk about today, but I think the reason why you're talking about this is because it's so critical for people to understand.
It's the primary issue from which all other decisions flow. And if we can get the life issue right, we're going to see benefits throughout our economy and our nation as a whole. But one of the laws that I'd like to refer to, and I think we could see it up on the screen, it's Senate Bill 1696. It's entitled Women's Health Protection Act of 2013, and it was actually introduced by Senator Blumenthal, who is a Democrat from Connecticut. And it was put out last December, but it just went through the Judiciary Committee hearings. And basically, the proponents of the bill are saying that it's going to eradicate all pro-life laws that have been hard fought and won over the last 40 years. And the proponents would also say it could strike down over 200 pro-life laws, both at the federal and state level, laws such as a waiting period, mandatory education of the woman before she makes her final decision, the ultrasound laws. And this will all be discarded, and it would also allow abortionists like Kermit Gosnell from North Philadelphia, who has been convicted in a court of law of murdering babies that were born alive during botched abortions. And it would allow these men and women to continue endangering the lives of women. And essentially, it would facilitate abortion on demand without limitations to the time of birth. And this is a horrible law. And I would call upon my congressman, your congressman, Matthew Cartwright, to join me in repudiating this bill. This cannot stand and cannot go forward.
You notice how they keep on throwing when you look at it, what anyone would say, Women's Health Protection Act, okay?
It's in the title, it's in the language.
So women say, this is for health care for women. It just amazes me, Dave, how these wacko liberals and I say they're wacko, anyone who wants to kill an unborn baby, and the Democratic liberals can't kill babies fast enough, okay? Obama is telling the Planned Parenthood, God bless you, let's kill more babies, and here's more money, okay? Mrs. Obama is saying partial birth abortion, she was upset when they did away with that. Where are we going in this world when we're killing unborn babies? And we have a senator, okay, who doesn't surprise me. They are as liberal as you can be, killing on demand when a little baby's heart is bleeding there. Does it make any sense? And they want to know why this country is going down the tubes?
Sam, obviously I'm preaching to the choir here.
Yes, you are.
But I hope I can get my message out to the good citizens of Northeast Pennsylvania.
But you got to lose the pro-life there, Dr. Moylan. If you want these votes and women are going to vote for you, you're against women's health care. If anyone's not against women's health care, it's Dr. Dave Moylan.
No, exactly.
I don't understand it.
Well, let's go to the next bill. And this was just debated yesterday, and it's entitled Protect Women's Health from Corporate Interference Act. And it was submitted by Senator Patty Murray of Washington State. But basically, it's would gut the religious liberties that have been reestablished by the recent Supreme Court decision, the so-called Hobby Lobby decision, which basically protected employers from funding four out of 20 types of birth control. And these are not birth control. These are abortifacient drugs. And they're trying to overturn that yet. Unfortunately, this has been blocked, at least temporarily.
Get the name again, folks. Protect Women's Health from Corporate Interference Act, indicating to them these corporations want to tell you what to do with your health care. They're going to control you, okay? See how they mislead the women, okay? And women think this is for health care. God knows the sad cases of women who had abortions, and I say God bless them, and I pray for them. But education is important. Education is very important. And your face. I know that's been a major cause, but when you take life and throw it aside, what else is left?
Yeah, exactly. When the Supreme Court made their decision, it was based on the Religious Freedom Act that passed Congress overwhelmingly during Bill Clinton's administration and was signed into law by Bill Clinton. So it's just religious freedom is going to be a very important issue in the upcoming election.
You're finding, as you're going through your district right now, you're meeting with a lot of people, as well as your opponents doing that. What are people telling you, other than, what are their concerns that they're saying? When you become a congressman, Dr. Moylan, this is what I'd like you to do. What are they saying?
Sam, what I'm hearing loud and clear is health care needs to be reformed. We're not happy with
is this just Republican groups you're
No.
Okay.
I care for a lot. I do a lot of my interaction with patients and the citizens in the medical arena. So Democrats, Republicans, Independents. But the health care, which we're not going to talk about today, but that certainly needs to be adjusted and somehow reformed. But the other things I'm hearing is energy, the cost of energy. Everybody got whacked this last winter, cost of all forms of energy, even natural gas, oil, through the roof, electricity, just beyond belief. So what I want to talk about today will impact upon that. The other things is jobs. Mm-hmm. And what I'm going to hope to prove to our listeners is that we have the capacity with our carbon wealth, be it natural gas or the solid carbon, coal, the black diamonds that we have under our feet, we should be able to turn our economy around, because energy equals your standard of living.
Well, stand in line for that, because Congressman Barletta has been fighting that for years. Congressman Kelly, Marino, I'm sure even maybe Congressman Cartwright. I don't know where he stands. I think you brought some.
I did bring some of his
where
records.
Where he worked against the coal industry. But however, I think we've been hearing that for years. But you know what? These poor people are still paying. Folks, I'm talking to Dr. Dave Moylan. He's running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District. And remember, docmoylan.com. Folks, I know I get a little strong when it comes to pro-life. That's the only agenda I ever push here, and I always welcome Planned Parenthood to come on this show, and you tell me why you think you should pull little arms and legs apart, and for all these phony legislators who have sold their soul to Satan, as far as I'm concerned, just for a vote, and lying to the women in this country about health care, they should be ashamed of themselves. They should hang their head in shame. And thank God we have good congressmen in Washington who make them come up and face that fact. It's not health care for women, folks. It's blatant killing unborn babies, and this other wacko senator wants to kill them on demand. How sick are we getting? We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, our website is ssptv.com. 24/7, every one of our shows are there. And remember, for those of you who are watching in the Pottsville area, Comcast, we're on Comcast 190. In the Wilkes-Barre Mountaintops, Kingston area, we are in number 19, channel 19. And this Dr. Moylan show will also be seen in the Northampton areas on their respective cable companies. My email, sam@ssptv.com. My guest, Dr. Dave Moylan, who is a candidate for the U.S. Congress 17th Congressional District. Okay, Doctor, let's talk about climate change.
Climate change. We've heard from the president and former Vice President Al Gore.
You mean the billionaire now?
The billionaire,
Yeah, okay.
yes. The argument, the controversy over climate change or global warming is over. It's settled science. That's the terminology that's being thrown around. And I realize that this is the linchpin on what we're going to do with our national energy policy. So, of course, I'm a medical doctor. I'm a medical scientist. But I wanted to become an informed critic. So, Sam, next slide.
What's the next slide there, Andy? There it is. Oh, you're in Las Vegas.
Well, yes, Viva Las Vegas. And I did not run into Elvis, but I attended the 9th International Conference on Climate Change. And you notice they were talking about climate change now, not global warming. And there's a reason for that. Next slide. And again, I think that if we understand this issue, get the science down, we can make informed decisions going forward. Next slide. And what is global warming? Basically, it's an increase in the Earth's average surface temperature due to multiple effects. And one of them may well be greenhouse gases. And these scientists that I met and spoke with and lunched with, they did not deny that. But it's a small effect. And one that may very well wash this out is total solar irradiance. And basically the sun is beaming on this planet 24 hours a day, and it accounts for 98.98% of the energy that's deposited here. Maybe a little component from geothermal warming, but it's got to be mainly the sun's energy. Now, how do we measure temperature? This is a nice slide on the very crude thermometer that was invented by Galileo in 1593. It had to do with water temperature and the density of liquids floating in the water. But again, probably the difference in temperature from decade to decade is going to be well under 1 degree centigrade. And you can imagine how important it is to have precise measurements. Next slide. And how is the climate change measured? Well, many ways. Air temperature, sea temperature, and they're usually measured by weather reporting stations. And also, you can use satellites with infrared technology to measure the tropospheres or atmosphere temperature. And also, vessels at sea can report this, reporting stations from the ocean. And we also have the technology to measure the carbon dioxide. Next slide. And there are problems that are identified in these measurements. And one has to do is where you put the weather reporting station. I'm going to show you some examples of that. A lot of the measurements in the past were up in the dew line, the distant early warning stations that were around the Arctic Circle. That was our military and Canada's military having radar stations up there to detect Soviet missiles coming in. And they would send the soldiers out in 40-degree below weather to take a measurement, write it down from a mercury thermometer, and report it. And so it was a pencil and paper record. Again, that's been called into question how accurate that was. Sometimes the soldier would have to go out and fight off a polar bear to take the measurement. So the other thing is the heat effect of urbanization. Out in Las Vegas, it's in the middle of a desert, that average temperature in that area over the last few decades has increased 10 degrees. And it can be directly related to all the heat sink that occurs when you put up concrete and tarmac and shiny buildings. It sucks in the temperature. So that could be one of the explanations here. Next slide. And this is a picture of a weather station that's located right in the middle of the picture. And it's from the University of Arizona in Tucson. And apparently they had to move that station several times as the university put up new structures, dormitories, science buildings, whatever. So the next slide will show you where it is currently sited. And it's right in the middle of a parking lot that has a cage around it. And you can imagine that this is going to artificially raise the temperature from all the macadam heating up. So that station has actually been inactivated because the data wasn't reliable. Next slide. And again, nobody denied, all these scientists I spoke with, they did not deny that the climate was changing, but they have looked at the historical record, and there are cycles, ups and downs in the temperature around the globe that are related to nature and have nothing to do with the small effect from carbon dioxide in the air. Greenland, in medieval times, it was Greenland because they were farming that area. Now it's ice. So again, we've had ice ages and warming periods throughout the last few centuries and millennia. Now, the greenhouse gas, I'd like to briefly define this, but carbon dioxide is one of the largest components of greenhouse gases. Water vapor, that will be very important here. Methane, nitrous oxide, and then basically hydrofluorocarbons that are used in refrigeration. Next slide. And this shows the percentage, and carbon dioxide is about 58% of the total of greenhouse gases. Next slide. And basically, how does the greenhouse effect work? You can see the greenhouse on the right-hand side, a glass structure. CO2 can accumulate in there. The rays come in, and they're basically trapped, and energy is reflected back into the greenhouse to raise the temperature. And the theory is that something like that may be going on in our atmosphere with greenhouse gases located higher up in the atmosphere and causing a heat trapping effect. One of the things that the many models that have been developed, computer models, have not taken into account is the effect of that water vapor that I mentioned. The clouds. On a cloudy day, it's a lot colder. So it's almost like a negative feedback loop. As the clouds form, they will cool the earth. And there's probably a plateau effect occurring. Next slide. Okay. And these are atmospheric measurements of carbon dioxide. And over the last 100 years, the amount of carbon dioxide in the air has increased from about 290 up to about 390. So we're flirting with 400. Now, is that bad? Good? Whatever. The greenhouses. You can take carbon dioxide, and this has been done experimentally. They pump the carbon dioxide in high concentrations into the greenhouse. What happens to the plants? Do they die off? If it gets low, they will die off. But if you enrich the environment with that, the plants grow bigger, the trunks are thicker. They looked at orange trees. The oranges were bigger, and they had 11% more vitamin C. So carbon dioxide is a plant food.
Folks, I'm talking to Dr. David Moylan. He is the running for in the 17th Congressional District for Congress, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. My guest, Dr. David Moylan, running for Congress in the 17th Congressional District, and you want to continue on with your carbon.
Sam, if we can go to the next slide, it reminds the viewers from basically high school biology of the carbon cycle. And you can see the sunlight coming in. That's where all our energy is basically derived from. It reaches the plants. They take the carbon dioxide out of the air. Again, that's how I say the carbon dioxide acts as plant food. And they make leaves. They're eaten by the animals. And basically, nitrogenous waste is deposited back into the soil where it is converted by bacteria. And the carbon dioxide is released by fermentation as well as other sources. And again, the great cycle, it's part of nature, it's part of life. Next slide. Now, we did say that if you have too much carbon dioxide, you can get a little toxic. And I'm going to show, these are some of the symptoms: headaches, weakness, dizziness, and eventually in very high levels, loss of consciousness. That level has to be over 20,000 to get these toxic effects. And we're talking about 400 in our atmosphere. And the next slide is a reminder from the flight of Apollo 13, great movie, but they ran into problems with the carbon dioxide building up, and they had to do a MacGyver to get a device to lower that. But in a submarine, they don't even turn the scrubbers on to lower carbon dioxide till it's 8,000. Okay, so we're at 400. Puts things into perspective. And this again shows measurements from Hawaii with the level going up. Well, the models that have been, computer models, next slide, that have been developed would predict that we should be burning up at this point. It's not. The actual measurements are on the lower right-hand side, forming a plateau. And so the models aren't fitting the data that's being measured. Next slide. And this is the actual measurement. Again, so difficult to measure temperature, but the little scatter there. But overall, the average temperature has not changed in the last 17 years and 10 months. Sam, they had to change the name from global warming to climate change because it wasn't warming.
Here again, the American people are being misled because we have a president who has an agenda. And when you have an agenda, they're going to massage, they're going to spin, they're going to do everything possible to do away with, particularly in our region, the coal, okay? And that's, don't you see that? Don't you see where they're going here?
My old man used to say, we're being sold a bill of goods.
Period. And that's why shows like this, I know I get a lot of liberal wackos upset. They send me these nasty letters, and one guy said he can't wait to read my obituary, which means that, you know, they cannot handle the facts, okay? And he's making fun of me that I'm saying fair and balanced. Well, we are fair and balanced. And I welcome anyone to come on the show. I wouldn't put him on the show because the guy is just off. He's the kind of guy you hold us up, he'll say it's gray, okay? But anyway, they have an agenda, and the poor American public who are paying the bill, those senior citizens who are suffering every day, okay, keep paying because we're being lied to.
Well, Sam, I want to move on to some other energy controversies and situations, but again, I think the scientists I met out there, this is not settled science. We still have to continue the studies, continue the measurements, but let's not shoot ourselves in the foot with our economy, because I said before, energy is standard of living.
We have another slide?
Yes. Okay, and again, why the disconnect between the measured and the actual has to do with that urban sprawl and just difficulties in taking the measurements, and also the cooling effect of the cloud cover. Next slide. And again, when I went to MIT, one of the first things they taught us there was the scientific method. And Sam, basically what that calls for is you ask the question, you do your research, your background research, then you come up with a hypothesis, and then you come up with an experiment. Then you do the experiment and you collect the data. And then you do it again to reinforce your data. And if it doesn't jive, you go back and you develop a new hypothesis. And I'm going to quote in the next slide a famous physicist when I was at MIT. He was at Caltech. And basically what he said was, no matter how smart you are and how beautiful the hypothesis is, if the data doesn't meet it, you have to discard it. It's wrong. That was Richard Feynman, pioneer. So how does this all translate and affect our national energy policy, particularly locally? Well, I would say we need to develop a national policy that is, quote, all of the above. Nuclear energy has to be exploited. Again, there's nothing greener than that. Also, biomass, wood, municipal waste, all these need to be utilized. Wind power, you see that sprouting up all around the Northeast. Geothermal power, solar power, and hydroelectric power. But the two there that are being subsidized by the government, wind and solar, they're the most expensive. So they should not be abandoned, but developed. And right now, they're only a small percentage. Right at the present time, 40% of the nation's electricity is generated by coal. Next slide.
Got about a minute left.
Okay, well, on the horizon there, small modular reactors, they will be able to help with the balance of power. Next slide. And thorium, that's out there. A gram of thorium contains the same amount of energy as 28,000 gallons of gasoline. And next slide. Cadillac did come up with a prototype in 2009. 10 or 8 grams could power that car for 100 years. So we need to get cheap energy, and coal could be the
And here's
source.
the most important one, using clean coal technology. As we've known, there's billions of energy we're sitting on. Dr. Moylan, we're continuing our series, okay, and you're informing the public, and I appreciate that. DocMoylan.com, .moylan.com, folks. Get all the facts. Don't vote for anyone unless you know what they're all about, including this guy. If you feel that he's not right, vote for somebody else. Vote based on qualifications. We'll see you next time.